Hey everyone, my name is Mason, and welcome back to Mason Zero MTG. One of the summer 2018 products for Magic the Gathering is called Battlebond. It's a supplemental set aimed at the two-headed giant format. This is not a commonly played format in Magic, but you may be familiar with it if you like attending pre-release events with friends. For those who don't know, Two-Headed Giant is a 2 versus 2 format in which you and a teammate each play a separate deck. You share a life total of 30, and you share phases of the turn. You don't share anything else, not mana, not permanents, not hands, not libraries. Having a teammate presents an interesting opportunity for some unique cards and mechanics that aren't as effective in a normal 1v1 game of Magic. Cards that do something to each opponent, for example, are premium cards in this format, as you will get the same effect for each of your opponents. In this video, I will be discussing in a general sense what mechanics and what sorts of mechanics I expect to see in Battlebond. This is going to be a lot different analysis than for most sets, as it's a format that has never really received a dedicated set or had much support as a format. This will be something like a combination of Commander, Conspiracy, and a standard set pre-release, making it a bit hard to evaluate. Surge. Only ever printed in Oath of the Gatewatch, Surge was designed specifically for Two-Headed Giant, making it great for Battlebond. Surge is an alternative cost that can be on any kind of spell, that reduces the cost if you or a teammate has cast a spell already this turn. Some spells, such as Crush of Tentacles, also come with other bonuses, such as generating creature tokens in addition to the cost reduction. Battlebond could feature reprints of some Surge cards, as most of the names are not specific to the plane of Zendikar. We could also see new Surge cards. The mechanic was used pretty minimally in its first printing, and it would be cool to see it expanded upon. The mechanic was limited to blue and red, so it would be interesting to see what other colors could do with the mechanic. For example, here's a card I mocked up for black. It's kind of inspired by Malicious Affliction, except instead of Morbid it uses Surge. This theoretical card costs 1 generic mana and 2 black for an instant that says destroy a target creature. Then it has Surge for 2 black and says if this card's Surge cost was paid, destroy up to 2 target creatures. Something like this seems fair and balanced. It has to be rare because it can destroy 2 creatures for a good rate, but without Surge it's just murder, which is normally a common or uncommon. Looking at Oath of the Gatewatch in general is a good place to start, as there are many cards that allow you to target other players in addition to yourself, such as allowing your teammate to draw cards if they need to. Something like Tempting Offer. Tempting Offer is so close to being a good mechanic for Battlebond. Unfortunately, it says that each opponent may accept the offer. However, a new mechanic that says each player may do something would be perfect. The general rule of thumb in Commander for Tempting Offer is to never take the offer, because it will almost always help the person who played the card more than it will help you. But if a Two-Headed Giant version of the mechanic was printed, your teammate would probably always take the offer, giving you an extra bonus. This also makes it even more of a difficult decision for the opponents depending on how it scales. Using your teammate's resources. Some of the most interesting mechanics in Magic break the rules of the game. One of the rules of Two-Headed Giant is that while you share phases of the turn and a life total, you do not share mana pools, hands, graveyards, libraries, etc. But what if there were cards that temporarily bent the rules to let you share these things? Let's imagine a sorcery that says until end of turn, you and teammates share a mana pool. This still requires you to coordinate with teammates. You can't tap your teammates' lands, but this could be used for a big blowout. Instead of both you and your teammate casting a smaller spell, one of you could cast a bigger, splashier spell. This would kind of be the same as a card like Pyretic Ritual that just adds mana, and in most cases probably wouldn't be super impactful like that card generally is, but much like cards like Pyretic Ritual, when they do work, they make a huge difference and can really help you go off. Cards that look at the whole field. Many cards in Magic only care about cards that you have and not what other people have. However, that's not the case all the time. In Dominaria, Knight of Grace and Knight of Malice got a buff if any player controlled a certain color of permanent. It didn't have to be you. This would be a cool mechanic for Battlebond. For example, you may not be super excited to play Knight of Grace in 1v1 if you're not playing black also, because your opponent probably won't be playing black. But in 2v2, your teammate could be playing black instead, which would buff up your Knight of Grace. There was also a higher likelihood that one of your opponents would be playing the color. I can see a card like Coat of Arms being in this format if tribal synergies happen to matter, but even if they didn't, a card with similar text could be possible. Imagine something like a 5-mana common artifact creature that enters with a +1/+1 counter on it for each color of permanents on the battlefield. These sort of global effects will be extra good in a 4-player game, and also allows for cards that just look at what you and your teammate control, which will also generate additional value and separates these cards from something that could be printed in a format like Commander. Cards that affect each opponent. There are plenty of cards in Magic that affect each opponent rather than just target player. Outside of Commander players, though, we mostly ignore whether a card does one or the other, and generally something that hits every player is less efficiently costed. In Two-Headed Giant, we have to look for cards that affect more than one person because these cards do double duty. A card that makes each opponent sacrifice a creature gets rid of 2 threats rather than 1. We will likely see a lot of reprinted cards and a lot of new cards in this category. I expect to see a much higher quantity of these cards than in a normal set, but when drafting or playing sealed, players will need to prioritize these if they want to put these cards in their decks. Here's some great examples of fun cards that are great for a 2v2 game. Arterial Flow from Rivals of Ixalan turns into a 3-mana spell that makes your opponent team discard 4 cards, lose 4 life, and have you gain 2 life. That's a massive advantage and makes this card much better than in a 1v1 setting. Exsanguinate is even more game-winning than in a 1v1 game, as is a card like Disaster Radius. Dragonlair Spider will make double the spider tokens. Fate Spinner sets both players back and can technically have 2 phases skipped. The list goes on and on. There are plenty of great cards here that are extra good in Two-Headed Giant, but often ignored in many other formats. Combat mechanics. There are a few combat mechanics that work amazingly well in Two-Headed Giant, and we will likely see several of these cards in Battlebond. This includes cards with Battalion or similar effects, same with Battlecry. These don't care about creatures that just you are attacking with, these care about creatures attacking at all, whether or not they're yours. This is also why cards that can't attack alone are good. You don't have to rely on yourself to play another creature, you can rely on your teammate. Myriad is a mechanic from Commander that is better in that format, but still great in Two-Headed Giant, as it essentially allows you to copy that attacking creature in combat and attack both players. It's important to look at cards that don't rely on only your own creatures. Look for cards that have the ability to target any creature and not just your own, so you could potentially buff your teammate's creature if you don't have anything on board. In conclusion, these are 6 kinds of mechanics I expect to see in Battlebond when it releases this summer, but of course the Magic designers are going to make plenty of other mechanics as well. Some of these may end up in the set to various degrees, whether they include a keyword or not, and there will likely be more mechanics that I didn't think of, including mechanics that are not as specific to multiplayer play, and maybe just some one-off cards. If you have an idea of what might be in Battlebond, whether it's mechanics or specific reprints, let me know in the comments. And of course, like the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.